Everyone, thank you all for coming here today. My name is Sonal Jessel. I'm the Director of Policy at We Act for Environmental Justice, one of the three hosts of our Climate Justice Pavilion. I'm happy to introduce what will be an amazing panel about climate justice for youth and youth leadership within the climate justice movement. And it's hosted by Climate Equity Collaborative. So we're happy to have them here today. And now I'm going to pass it off so they can begin. Thanks everyone for being here.
All right, so hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Justina Nixon Saint-Thiel. I am the Vice President of Corporate Social Responsibility and ESG at IBM. And I am really excited to be here today. First of all, I like being with the young folks. So really, really excited to be here. So this is really important. When we've been saying for so long that the youth are our future, children are our future, it is so critical right now because their voice is so important in what is happening around climate change. It is critical that they are considering new innovations, new solutions to solve this issue. It's critical because they are so focused on the just transition, making sure that we are not leaving any vulnerable communities behind. And it's critical because they're the ones that are going to lead us into the right technology solutions that are going to make a difference. So I can give you a little bit of background on the work that we do. So we have global programs that are focused on education and sustainability. And in the education space, we made a commitment to skill 30 million people by 2030. And when you think about the issues now with climate, it is so critical that we make sure we skill and upskill, right? Especially underrepresented, underprioritized communities so that they can be a part of the green economy. And that's a huge focus of ours globally. The other thing that we've done is launch an IBM Sustainability Accelerator. And this Sustainability Accelerator is really around how IBM uses its technology like artificial intelligence and its data, working in partnership with nonprofit organizations and governments to really create and scale solutions that help vulnerable communities. Our focus is on sustainable agriculture and it's on clean energy. And in fact, just today, we launched 5 new partnerships, including right here in Egypt, 5 new partnerships that are going to create and scale clean energy solutions that reach vulnerable communities. Again, huge emphasis on climate justice, huge emphasis on the just transition, and we know we can't do this alone. This requires partnerships. So IBM works with nonprofit organizations. We work with them because they're closer to these communities, they understand their needs, and they understand how to deliver these solutions to have the biggest impact. So technology is needed to make changes here. Our youth, they're needed because their voices need to be heard. They're passionate about these issues, and they're the ones that are going to really create the solutions that are going to make a difference. So thank you for having me here. This is an amazing initiative, and I'm really excited to be a part of it. Thank you.
Executive Director Ms. Becky Shepard and VP Ms. Justina Santel Nixon, distinguished guests and fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends joining with us virtually on live broadcast, good afternoon from Egypt. My name is Ellen Chen and I'll be responsible for hosting this event today. And first of all, on behalf of Taiwan Youth Climate Coalition, I'd like to extend our sincere thanks to the Climate Equity Collaborative for supporting and hosting this event with us. It's really a great pleasure to welcome everyone today in the first ever Climate Justice Pavilion at COP27 and to address you on the critical role of climate education in advocating climate justice through public-private partnerships. And lastly, without taking any more of your time, I'll be handing the floor to our moderators, Regina Chang, to the stage. Regina.
Hello everyone, I'm Regina Chang and I'm the one of the members of Taiwan Youth Climate Coalition and also one of the organizers of this session. So the reason why we want to implement this session is because I have experienced several occasions to discuss climate education with other youth around the world. And I feel like they have many experiences and ideas that I think we should like form like a deeper dialogue with them and like forming partnership with them. So that's why we want to implement this session, and I hope you enjoy it. And I will also like to have my co-moderator Ajani to introduce himself.
Hi, thank you so much, Regina, and thank you so much for everyone to join. I'm Ajani Stella. I am a youth climate advocate and a climate education specialist. My nonprofit, Kids Fight Climate Change, focuses on youth-led, youth-focused climate education. So we work directly with young people to deliver that, deliver those resources and accessibility. I'm really excited to be here today because I've also had so many conversations with climate education with people across the world, and we really need to unite our resources. Only together, when we pool our ideas, can we really tackle this large problem of climate education. And I'm really excited to see what everyone has to say and to help moderate and facilitate this discussion.
Thank you, Johnny. And next, we are going to like have every panelist to introduce themselves. So first, from Jamie, online.
Hi, my name is Jamie Chris Boxford. I am a 15-year-old sophomore student at Energy Institute High School in Houston, Texas. I have been working with different climate education organizations, such as climate science, for the past year almost. And I'm very passionate about climate education, specifically climate justice, and I really hope to pursue that beyond school too. So thank you.
Thank you. And next was Sakura.
Hi, I'm Sakura Takahashi, and I'm really excited to speak at here. And I'm a board member of the Climate Youth Japan, which is an youth environmental NGO in Japan. And I'm studying about geospatial analysis at Keonn University because I'm really interested in to evaluate natural capital and the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions and incorporate them into the economy. Today, on behalf of the Climate Youth Japan, I will provide the perspectives with input from my other colleagues in Japan. Thank you.
So next with alumni.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Olumide Idowu. I'm from Nigeria. I'm the executive coordinator for African Youth Initiative on Climate Change. And I'll be looking at what the role of climate education and how we are doing it and making it work in the context of Africa. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, my name is Kate and I'm from Singapore Youth for Climate Action. And we are a volunteer-run organization based in Singapore who we want to bring more youth into the environmental movement and not just as participants, but helping them to lead and implement their own climate initiatives.
Okay, so next.
Thank you. So I'm Hiuching from Hong Kong, representing Carbon Care Innolab here in COP and in this panel. So me myself, I start working on youth since high school, and what my mission is to inspire them in their potentials and their capacities to take action, and finally that can lead to their participation in solutions. Yeah. So and I will share more about my organization later in the panel discussions.
Hi everyone, my name is Alexa White. I am a PhD candidate at the University of Michigan and here as a student delegate for the Deep South Center for Environmental Justice. I'm classically trained as an agroecologist and a graduate student instructor. I'm happy to be here.
Hello, my name is Dr. Adedoyin. Adeleke. I have a PhD in energy using system dynamics, and I'm a research fellow in Polytechnic di Milano in Italy. I'm here representing Green Growth Africa, which is a non-profit I founded, where we work with young people across African continent to develop environmental solution in integration with social and economic development. I'll be sharing about some of our award-winning initiatives. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, I'm Jeff. I'm based from the Philippines. I'm from Loss and Damage Youth Coalition, and at the same time from my local organization, which is Youth Strike for Climate Philippines. It's one of the leading climate movement in the Philippines. We are lobbying in the government, at the same time using activism as one of our ways to forward climate action. Aside from doing activism, I'm an architectural designer focused on green and bamboo architecture.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Sohaila, and I am a student at Stanford studying specifically like community health and how it intersects directly with climate change and how it impacts the livelihoods of everyday people, especially communities of color. And previously, I helped organize the first youth-led march on Capitol Hill with 0 Hour, but I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you. So we have another panelist from online, is Akanimo.
Thank you very much. Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Akanimo Etokebe, and I am a doctoral electrical engineering student at Prairie University in North America. And I'm excited to join the discussion here in climate change. As the name of the school indicates, Prairie A&M. My school is heavily involved in agricultural and mechanical engineering research, and I've had hands-on experience as to how climate change impacts crops within my school. Glad to be part of the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we have a special guest here. Like, we will invite her to share something with us.
My name is Sharon Ngomowo. I'm a Trade and Tourism Ambassador for the West African community. I'm 12 years old and I study in Bourbon International School. I'm in grade 7. I am an ambassador for tourism in the African Tourism Board, and I'm also an ambassador for tourism in Tanzania, an ambassador for Tanzanite, the rarest gemstone. I am a founder for my foundation, Sharon Ngo Foundation. In my foundation, I focus on 3 main themes: climate action, environmental justice, and sustainable tourism. I plant trees because I have a 2 million tree planting project, and I've already planted over 38,500 trees with the support of my ambassadors. I am also an author for my book, The Big Five. In my foundation, I also appoint ambassadors, and I've appointed over 14 ambassadors in America, in China, in Nigeria, in Uganda, in Burundi, in Rwanda, in Kenya, and in Tanzania. Thank you so much. Oh, and my message to the world is climate change is real, and we must act now. As children and young youth are ready to participate in fighting against climate change. So please put us on board. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's great to hear everybody share their experiences. And now we are heading to our panel discussion. So I will hand the floor to Ajani to start our panel discussion.
Excuse me. Great. Thank you so much, Regina. And those were just such amazing words. It's great to see that someone just as young as 12 is at COP27 is having this incredible message and this impact. It's inspiring to me, just 4 years older than her. So I wanted to move into our first panel question for discussion, and that is, how is climate education implemented in your region, and what does ideal climate education look like to you? So 3 of our panelists are going to be talking about that today, and we're going to start out with Olumide. So Olumide, if you'd like to take that question to get us started.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to talk about climate education. In Nigeria, where I work with a network called Nigerian Youth Climate Coalition, the key thing, I'm very happy to listen to what she just said, because how many young generation can actually have this opportunity to speak or to have the understanding of what we are talking about here. And one of the major things we are trying to do is how can we simplify the word climate change to young people? And that is why if you look at Nigeria as a context, we have close to 250 million people, right? And we have 80 million young generation. Apart from that, we have close to several and something local governments and different languages. And if you're only speaking English and we are teaching people the understanding of climate change, how do you want to carry other people along? And that is why one of the biggest things that we are working with is to see how we can simplify the English into three different local language. And we have three different local language called Yoruba, Hausa, and Igbo. And why we're doing this is because we actually want people, like my sister here, to actually understand how climate action is very, very important. Because without understanding, nobody will call us to the table to have a conversation. And that is why education is very key in the development. And also, we're also looking at how can we use pictorial representation to let people to understand that the word climate change is not only left on that, it's also an environmental problem. We have air pollution, we have adaptation, we have mitigation. People are talking about loss and damage. How do you want people to actually relate to this conversation if they don't even understand the problem? So we are doing this to make sure that every young people from every level you are, even though you don't know how to read, there's a way we communicate with pictorial representation. And it's very, very key for us as a country to see how we can make sure that we don't leave anybody behind. So that's what we are doing to make sure that every young generation understand the context. So by the time we get to a level, we're able to seek, we all ask for table that want to speak on the table. When we get to the table, how do we relate to the conversation? How do we relate to the big languages that they are using in the negotiation table? So education is key, and it's the only thing that can actually make us to understand a development issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that, Olumide.
Thank you.
I really like what you said about accessibility there, because I also think that that's one of the most important parts of climate education. Sure, there's information out there, but most of the world, especially people who don't speak English, don't have access to that. So it's really inspiring to see that you're working on that. And especially that aspect of relatability too for younger generations. I'd like to continue on this conversation if Jamie could give us some words about what climate education means to them and what ideal climate education looks like.
Right. So I'm going to talk about Texas a little bit. My name is Jamie Chris Oxford. I've been in Texan public schools my entire life, and in the past year, I've helped start like climate education clubs at a lot of different schools all across Texas. And I've helped start. In 2009, the chair of Texas Board of Education refused to allow education on fossil fuels because climate change was, and I quote, a bunch of hooey, meaning nonsense. This is the Texas Board of Education said that. In early 2020, the National Center for Science Education issued a report on individual U.S. states and graded them on how well they taught climate change sciences. This study it's called Making the Grade, and it's a really interesting study. In this study, Texas received a failing grade, and the two main reasons for that lack of climate education in Texas schools is A, many of the people in power just fully choose not to believe in the climate crisis, and B, oil and fossil fuels are the state's largest economic input, so many officials are really uncomfortable with the idea of students learning about the dangers and negative impacts of fossil fuels. As of today, things are a little different and the basics are covered, such as like greenhouse gases, fossil fuels, alternate energy sources. But this is like usually taught at the discretion of individual teachers, and only like the very, very basics are required by individual school districts. And another really interesting thing that I actually just found out was that teachers in Texas are required to use the word can when referring to the impacts of fossil fuels on our climate. Texan teachers must say that fossil fuels might or can have a negative impact on the environment, even though, as you all know, it's been consistently proven that fossil fuels and human activity have the biggest negative influence on the climate. The Texas Board of Education has received many letters of complaint, such as one sent by climate activists at the University of Texas. And the board says they're, quote, reviewing the curriculum, but very few changes have been made since then. And in terms of like my ideal climate education, all I can ask is that it is unbiased, honest to students, and like even if that makes the people in power uncomfortable, which it will. But beyond that, like very bare minimum, students should not only have context as to how the climate got to this point, but also be fully aware of what systems need to change to reverse the climate crisis. Students should be given practical, applicable knowledge on what individual actions they can take to make change for the better, both at home and as part of like a larger system.
I think that last point you made is super interesting there, Jamie. So much of climate education focuses, or lack thereof, focuses on what we as individuals are facing. But I don't think a lot of students realize that we are part, as you said, the larger system. It's a global community, and that should really take center stage in climate education. So thank you for bringing that up. So to round off our discussion on this first question, I'd love to take the back to the in-person panelist, Sakura, if you could finish us off here.
Okay, I'm gonna perspectives from Japanese situations. In Japanese public education, we don't have a drastic curriculum for climate education. The schools also only provide the local environment and traditional agriculture, but there's a few opportunities to learn about the global climate-related issues in Japanese school and academy. So for these circumstances, students are aware of the ownership of the parties involved. So, and the viewpoint connecting to the local and global climate change. So when we think of the ideal climate education, the awareness of the parties involved is really critical. So in order to nurture a sense of ownership, it's important to offer opportunities for students to make their own decision with teacher support so that they can perceive the society situation as a member of the society. Besides, hands-on learning such as talking with the people vulnerable to loss and damage or like experiencing the rule-making processes through the model United Nations, etc., are really important to nurture a sense of ownership of the parties involved. Furthermore, study in Japan has shown that the showing co-benefits with local communities and economy is more likely to provide a positive inspiration toward a decarbonized society among Japanese people. So from this study, in terms of teaching methods, it's effective for Japanese people to promote climate action with core benefits of the living environment and real natural living conditions and environment. So therefore, that we believe that the fostering a sense of ownership and emphasis on co-benefits of living in natural environment is really critical to educate global leaders to tackle with the climate change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sakura. I think that your point about loss and damage actually really relates to what Jamie was saying at the end there about the global community, because climate change is impacting every country, every one of us differently, but we are all affected. So we have to make sure that we are together taking these steps to mitigate everyone's losses and to make sure that we have a collective response that highlights the needs of every single country. And that's what I think loss and damage really does. So that rounds up our discussion for the first question, and I'll pass it back over to Regina for our next question.
Okay, so then thank you, Ajani. And our next question is about how do these panelists see that climate change can drive climate justice? So I will hand over to Kate to share her ideas.
So the question is about how climate education can help to drive climate justice. And for me, fundamentally, I see climate education as drawing links. Everyone here, we all care about climate justice, right? We all feel it so strongly. But this right here, this is an echo chamber. And once you step out of this conference venue, people don't know what this term means. Even my family, I've been in this movement for about 4 years now. I don't think they've really grasped it. And So why is climate education so important? It's because not everyone cares about nature, and not everyone cares about trees. But my friends, I have friends who care about animal rights. I have friends who care about poverty, friends who care about children or the elderly. And the point of climate education is to help these people see how climate change impacts all of that. In Singapore, we're right at the equator, so it's summer all year round, like 30 degrees Celsius. It's going up to 40 soon. And that has an impact on low-income households who don't have an air conditioning. Or it impacts migrant workers who are working outdoors in the hot sun. And so people who care about all these different issues need to be able to see how it relates to them. And that's really the role of climate education.
Thank you, Kate. So I think the key message is that climate education can help people to know there are so many people that are impacted by climate change, and we need to educate them to know the importance of these issues so that everybody can take their own actions in addressing climate change. So next, I'm going to involve Keonn to share his experiences, his idea about this question. Okay, I think he's not online, so I will move on to Ajani to move on to our next question.
Great, sure. So our next panel discussion is very much about the effects that climate education has on climate justice. So how do you and your organization contribute to climate justice as a way to pursue, contribute to climate education as a way to pursue climate justice? So I'd really like to focus on the second part. How does it lead to climate justice? So let's start out with, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing this wrong, but Akanimo.
Okay, so I'm from Carbon Care Innolab, and our organization is the only NGO that focuses solely on climate change in Hong Kong, and that's our sole advocate or main focus of our advocacy. So echoing Kate, we also believe that climate education shouldn't be bounded by age, and we are trying to get everyone, every stakeholder or every person in the society on board to discuss on climate change and the injustice it brought. So we organize a lot of social dialogues in the form of Tenloa dialogues. So it's a storytelling styles, and we get involved academias, businesses, financial institutions who get the money in, and also NGOs who deliver services, and youth, of course, and also those who are affected. And we are covering really local topics in Hong Kong, although climate injustice is a big topic everywhere, especially maybe in less developed nations. But we are also trying to localize the problem and let Hong Kong people see how Hong Kongers are actually affected by climate change. So we discuss topics like people who lived in subdivided houses. You probably can't imagine in such a wealthy city like Hong Kong, people will be living in a cage and the size of probably 3 chairs, or smaller than the bench the panelists are sitting on. Also, we discuss the relationship about climate change and mental health with the disabilities, of course with youth and many other vulnerable groups in Hong Kong or in cities. And so what we are trying to do is that we ask questions, and we ask everyone, our guest or audience here as well, what do you think about climate change, and what is it to you, and what you can do about it? And then we could create solutions. And lastly, so we support each other. So as Carbon Care Innolab, we deliver lots of researches and data that can support them to advocate or carry on their services or get more funding from no matter public or private sources. So that is what we see climate education. And of course, we value a lot about youth voices. So that's why me as a youth delegate here in COP, so we also incubate a lot of young advocates through connecting them with international youth leaders like all our panelists sitting here and into international events, like they're sending us to COP and also board meetings. So that's, I think, in conclusion, Carbon Care Innolab see education as a means to get everybody on board, no matter youth or just the general public, to fight against climate injustice. Thank you.
Thanks so much there. Alexa, would you like to take the next step there?
Yeah, thank you. So I like to think about climate education in two very specific ways. As a Deep South Center for Environmental Justice student delegate here at COP, a lot of my work at home has to do with environmental justice screening tools. Environmental justice screening tools are critical, at least specifically throughout my work, because of the data that's being used. And so throughout the education and throughout the information that I give to my students at the University of Michigan, it's important for me to explain how data is not 100%. The technological advances that are made and the ways in which we use data are very important, and it's important to criticize where that data comes from. It's also important to think about how those programs are being used, and important to explain to youth that not everything is set in stone. Just because you read it in a textbook does not mean that it is that it has to be that way. Just because you see something existing in a specific manner doesn't mean that it can't be criticized or changed. And so the main point that I'd like to make is that throughout the technological advances that have to do with environmental justice and climate justice, we have to be able to criticize where data comes from, how we're using it, and what it really means on the ground. In a second version of myself, I'm an agroecologist, so everything that I study is very much outside in fields with farmers. And oftentimes when I am speaking to youth or speaking to folks about agroecology and food sovereignty, they don't understand that all of these things have to do with their everyday lives. The dinner that you eat every night, the breakfast that you eat every morning, all of those things are very intertwined in the very fabric of your being. And so through climate education, I think it's important to make it really relevant to everyone's everyday lives, or else it becomes just a figment of your imagination, something that is very easy to ignore. And so through food sovereignty and through my work with farmers as well as advocates in agroecology, I would just say that it's really important to realize that beyond the climate models that you see and the kind of images that you get on television, it has to do with your everyday life.
Thank you so much, Alexa. That idea of your everyday life is really powerful, because the way you were combining it with also the constant need for change and helping young students realize that is a really interesting combination, because it lets us show that we could be changing our society, but we can do it in a way that we know, in a way that we're comfortable with, and expounding on that. So that was really impactful to me. As our final panelist for this question, can we go back to Adedoyin?
Yeah, thank you very much, and I want to appreciate the organizers of the program. The thing is, I think she piqued my mind, but I'll put it this way. I think we should agree that actually none of us loves the climate. We only pay attention to climate because it's affecting our lives, and that's why we got interested in it. Now, if climate problems is affecting our lives, then the solutions we must develop for climate solutions should also be integrated with social and economic development. And that's the way we view climate education. We're trying to rethink, using a system thinking approach, to work with young people in universities and secondary schools in Africa. We've been able to touch about 22 African countries, including knowledge sharing seminars with students in America and in Europe. And what do? One, there is a university level education, and there is high school. I try to speak about, the few words I can speak about within the time frame. Now, what we do with secondary school students is We call them to be able to identify, we develop some resources and which we put online, which will get them to read. We put some money, some pocket of money somewhere, and say, read these resources, look into this, your environment based on the knowledge you have gained with what you have read, and study. Work in a team, identify environmental problems in your community. That is, you can develop a solution to, just an idea. Develop a solution idea and connect it with something else. Environment and health, environment and poverty, environment and transport and things like that. And then they come up with an idea. Now we look around the world to look for experts around the world on different aspects of environmental education who support them and mentor them in developing solutions. I'm happy to tell you that some of these young people, like this guy, my friend here, were able to develop innovations in Ghana, in Uganda, in Cameroon, about 7 countries, and their governments gave them award announced on newspapers. We're very excited about that. And if I have time, I'll tell you about the story of one of them. How you see the connection between environment and socio-economic development. One of our a team of students I was working with in our program in Kenya, they identified a community where buying sanitary pads, menstruation pads, was unaffordable. They were so poor they could not afford it. Some will cut carpets in their living room to do menstruation pads. I have this in the report. And they were able to now use residue of sugarcane that you throw out to make sanitary pads. And these women, when they are going through menstruation, when they are going through their menstruation, they are not able to go to their workplace, they are not able to go to the market, informal setting, and they're losing their economic livelihood. Now, some of them stay back at home and all that, and social issues. Now, with that solution, our students were able to provide 1,000 sanitary pads, menstruation pads, and distribute to them. With that, that woman is able to return to market to sell her goods using environmental solutions. And that's one. And we're happy that the initiative I'm talking about has been given an award by the Okayama ESD Award. I will be leaving here for Japan to receive the award. Secondly, at the university level, I work in a university in Europe. When you go to Europe, you go to America, you go to Australia, you find new generation courses that meet 21st century workforce, demand for workforce. But when you go to Africa, you find our universities still with the syllabus of 1970 and 1960, not addressing the peculiar challenges of climate and environment. Therefore, we look for students in different disciplines who wants to do research, PhD and masters, on any green growth issue connected to social and economic development. And we have been able to support about 200 students. 150 of them are at PhD level. They've done a PhD, while 50 of them are masters. And with this, we have been able to touch about 55 African universities in 22 African countries. But here is what I would say last. Integration, integration, integration. If the whole world is talking about integration, Africa should talk about it twice, because we still have development gap that we want to fill while solving environmental issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That idea of building up together in order to create a sustainable future is really powerful. And I think that's really going back to the theme that Jamie set out for us at the beginning, which is that we are a global community, and to respond collectively to this crisis, we have to build up. So that's why we need the social development that you were talking about. So now I'll pass it back off to Regina for our 4th question.
Yeah, so now it's the final question. So as everybody is attending COP, whether you are attend in person or virtually, so I would like to ask, what do you expect from COP27 in terms of climate justice and climate education? So now as I give the floor to Akanimo online.
Thank you for that question, Regina. So, my name is Akanimo here, a doctoral student in the Prairie University studying electrical engineering. So, I've got great expectations for COP27 as it pertains to climate justice as well as climate education. One of the things I was looking forward to is updates on the national determined contribution pact from Glasgow, from the last summit as it pertains to climate justice. I believe on the 4th day of the program, there were talks about the compensation fund, and I was excited about that as it pertains to compensating, developing countries that are greatly impacted by climate change. Another one of my expectations that I was excited about for COP27 is as it pertains to climate education. I was looking at discussions. I was paying more attention to discussions centered around fossil fuels. I think there has to be more discussions about that, and as it pertains to phasing out of fossil fuels and into the renewable components as it pertains to power generation. And on the fourth day as well, John Kerry had talked about the plans to help nations transition from fossil fuel to renewable energies. Renewables, basically components. I was excited about that, and basically the plan was specifically called Energy Transition Accelerator Plan. I'm looking forward to see what kind of positive chain reaction is going to come from that. As the years go by. Thank you.
Thank you. I think he mentioned that there are some key issues like NDC or some like help us to like drive the global efforts into like mitigation or other aspects like energy or like transportation such as that. So I think that's a very good point, and we'll like still tracking the negotiations and see how it happens. And now I will hand over to Jefferson to share his thoughts on this.
As for me, I believe every one of us, we have expectations coming here at COP, but I believe COP27 should be really, ambitious, not just about being ambitious, but must send a signal that we are really serious about implementation. And when I say implementation, one of the most important components of this is making sure that the information that we have here is accessible for everyone. In the intersecting vulnerabilities that we have, education is very vital so that we can provide solutions in every problems that we have. And as I am speaking about education, we all know that education all over the world is very inaccessible for vulnerable communities. And aside from having that problem, we have a large disparity and gap between education between women and men. We all know that the least informed people or communities are the side of women and girls. That's why we must invest in their education, because they're one of the most vulnerable communities in our society. And at the same time, we have to, transform our education, because what's the use of having this conversation if we are not going to align our conversation in our current educational institutions, in our government, in our societies, in our countries? That's why it's very important to take note that it only then we can only if we have everyone on board in this topic, if everyone is informed about what we are talking about, then it will only lead us to climate justice.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I just want to emphasize everything you've said because it's so vital and important. When I think about COP, I think of it as like a stage of congregation where there's this big momentum around climate and climate action. But where does this momentum go after this? And I think that is something that's really, really vital to think about. It is a privilege to just be here and like be around like-minded people. But there are grassroots organizations and people that are specifically focusing on climate justice and centering what we like learn, and the momentum that we've gathered here back home is very, very, very vital post-COP. And a second point I really want to talk about is specifically highlighting young people on the front line, specifically young people that are like in the communities that are doing a lot of like the grassroots action. And when I think about climate education, I think it is very vital to educate younger people, whether it means implementing that in like educational curriculums, but it's also super important to think about the young people that are gonna be like the future employers of our world. Our young people that are gonna be doctors, our young people that are gonna be lawyers, our young people that are gonna be just like going into any industry, because as we've seen today and like throughout COP, climate justice intersects in all different types of fields, and we're really, really micro-focusing on just like educating, I think, elementary schools, for example, but we should really focus on like our higher institutions of education, because these people are going to go into positions of power as well as just different industries that need to highlight climate justice as a core focus, because inevitably it's going to affect us in every sector of our life in the future. So thank you.
Thank you. I think both Jefferson and Sohaila, they both point out that we should be aware of the unequal access to those knowledge and resources when we address climate change. So I think it's very important, and as we all like devoted to climate education, I think we should like all aware of this and try to figure out like how to mitigate these situations. Okay, so we also have two special guests here, and I would invite like Mr. Sorry? Mr. Russell Holt from AgriLedger for your like remarks on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I really appreciate this forum to be here and engage with outstanding youth and students that I see here. The conversations you guys have are really speaking to all the pain points that we see in industry and the things that we're seeing right now globally as far as climate impact. But the key thing that you all touched upon is something that I think is very important, and that's really energizing the youth, not only at the elementary or middle school level, but at that level of university, where we know they are on their way to come into and be enlisted in this battle against climate change. For instance, at Prairie University, where Mr. Akanimo and others, I created a sustainability course for the HBCU, and we focused on the energy and AI nexus in order to accelerate, not to 1.5, to accelerate some of these systems beyond 1.5, because that's what we need right now. And in addition, by bringing and looking at these different elements and different levers, and this is what I want you guys to key on in your education. This challenge is a multimodal challenge. So it's going to take multimodal solutions, and that's going to cross departments, that's going to cross majors, that's going to cross sectors. So don't just come in and think I'm going to go into engineering or go into social sciences and give a siloed approach. Because if we're really going to make an impact out of COP, and we're really going to empower the youth to the level that you guys need to be empowered, we're going to have multimodal solutions that are systemic, system solutions that we can really use to make an impact not only on the climate, but to embolden the S and ESG. And that's to embolden those that are least of us, because they're being impacted negatively by the most of us. And I'm excited about what you guys talked about today. I'm excited about what you guys are doing. Focus on that food, water, energy nexus, and leverage AI and machine learning. And you guys are on target to be absolutely great. And I can't wait to enlist you in this battle.
Thank you. And I would also like to invite Mr. Searching from IBM Singapore.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I've been listening to all the discussion. Absolutely great. I think I would like to applaud, this particular audience. I think youth really is the change, that they kind of bring in. So, my applause, to all of you, are doing an incredible job over there. And I think someone asked, COP27, what are the ambitions and, what is the expectation? I think it is more than ever before. I think talking is done. To be honest, talking is done. We have all seen, what changes are kind of happening with the not only climate but supply chain disruptions, and people are going back to their commitments. Commitments in terms of going back into fossil fuels, where rather I would use this opportunity to actually accelerate the clean and renewable energy, on the planet. So the change that youth can bring, I think nobody else can bring. And I'll just kind of say, I agree with everything that Mr. Rasad kind of alluded to. I'll just say that the axis that the youth has to work on is, multimodal, and it has to be in conjunction with industry, academia, and the communities. Okay, and it has to be underpinned by, I'm from the technology world, so I'll say, it has to be underpinned by technology. Technologies are not perfect, but eventually, they at least enable people like, some of these youth that I kind of see to come up with very innovative solutions. Take those solutions, don't be disheartened, bring them up. I think today, on behalf of corporates, I can tell you all the organizations today have either accelerators or certain programs where we are all looking out for sustainable solutions. So if you have those ideas, please, bring those up, see, and, hopefully we will all be able to scale it up. But great to be on this panel, and, very happy to be, to see, the youth of today, on this. We just need much more of this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And as the time limit is starting to approach, so I would just we need to end this session. So so thank you all. I hope you all enjoy this session to let you know what the youth think about climate change and climate education. I hope you all enjoy this session. And I think this session is not just the end of the discussion of climate education. I think it's just the start to let more people to know about what you think about. And when we are going into the decision-making process, I hope that our youth voice can be heard in the decision-making process. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
So maybe we can take a picture together or so. Yeah. Thing. Yeah. Maybe you just yeah.
Lovely to meet you all.
Great to meet you.
Hey, you guys did good.
Thank you.
Great to meet everybody. Great to see you, Mr. Tyree.
Hey,